think we're up. Looks like we're up. Good. Let me move the mic up a little bit more to sort of get some decent audio. Also let Sam know that we're streaming just in case he's interested. Stream, by the way. Let him know. Let's let the people know. That way they know. We'll see if anyone shows up. Let's do that. This. More streaming, hooray. And we'll probably leave it at about that for now. So, what do we got going on? Okay, so for those of you who might be watching right now, we get a nice, let's say, let's get this a little bit higher. There we are. Nice wide shot. What we got going on here. Oh, man. But, for those of you who no one's watching, but we'll get there eventually. We'll see what happens when hopefully people start joining up, maybe. At least to see some late night updates with a disembodied person, or at least faceless person. But as the description says here, we are going to be putting a new heatsink on the XP machine. As you may have heard from the Maddening stream earlier, the XP machine makes a lot of noise when running. And that's because the cooler and fan I have running on it is fairly loud. So part of the challenge is we have a lot of heat being generated by the Pentium 4 that's in here now. So thanks to a donation from Sam, we have this pretty decent Cooler Master heatsink here. It has a nice copper bottom. I mean, there's brackets that mount onto the 487 socket, which is nice. A nice thick fan here. I mean, you can see this fan is pretty large. Copper on the bottom and everything. We'll have to get rid of some of that preset compound because we have some other compound we're going to use. But something that's going to work a lot better for this socket than my current hack job I have in here, which I'll show shortly here. Once I get the case open though, because this case is not open very easily. Oh, there we go. Alright, so let's see what would be the best way to show you guys what's going on in this thing. Actually, I'm going to resend out a message I have here. Alright, show just like that. There we go. That'll work. See if we get more people coming up at all. Oh, all right. But for those of you who might be watching this after the fact, our current solution is as follows here. Let's see if we can get you a good angle on this. So let's see if we can zoom in. And maybe move the camera down a little bit. Yeah, that'll work pretty decently. So that right there is an AM2 heatsink and fan. Let's turn on the flashlight on this. Let's get a little more light on this bad boy. There we go. So we have a non-standard heatsink and fan on here right now. It's actually zip stripped to the actual board. We have some, I don't know if you can see the zip strips, but there's on the heat, there are zip strips on the heat pipes of the actual heatsink. And while it does do the job of holding it in place and everything, the fan itself is fairly loud, and the heatsink is a non-standard, well, it's not a standard form factor for the socket. So it creates some issues with wanting to have an optimal solution for this in the future. That's why we're here today. We are going to put a more standard heatsink on this and also use better compound. So part 2 of this is using this cool laboratory highly conductive, even electrically conductive compound to maximize our transfer or heat transfer from heatsink and chip, right? So first things first, I get some skizzers to remove this heatsink. Alright, so rubbing alcohol, paper towels to clean off old compound, scissors to remove the actual heatsink from the original, or from the zip strips. As long as I can cut through them, which I should be able to. I did lock this down pretty tight, so that's without a doubt. And I'm hoping I don't have to take too much apart with the system itself. I should be able to spread the compound on the chip, put it back in the socket, and be done with it. Ouch. There are a lot of sharp points in here because I have a lot of stuff going on. Not just with the CPU. I can show the graphics card solution here shortly. Boom. Dang, that is thick. Well, I picked some decent zip strips, I can see that. There we go. Dang. Looks like I bent the chipset heatsink a little bit too. That'll be alright. Yeah, we got a lot of weird wiring going on with this. I had to do some funky stuff in this system. And I'll show some of that here shortly once I get the heatsink removed. Okay. It took a lot of work to get that heatsink on here too. I had to be very creative about how I mounted the zip strips, and it worked. it kept the system cool. It was just a matter of, well, it was a matter of finding a way to secure the heatsink without any doubt while having constant downward force on it. And for the most part, we accomplished that. Ah, dang. Those scissors are bruising me up, but we got it. All right. Does it? I did add a table in here real quick so I can work. Will do. All right. So, let me show you what I sort of did here. So these right here, let me see if I can get a little close up. These were the actual zip strips I had used to secure the heatsink previously, and these were tied down to a mount that is on the actual board, as well as the heat pipes are on the heatsink. Again, it was an AM2 heatsink on a 487, or is it 478? One of those two, Intel socket. I can't remember which way those numbers go. And here is our actual heatsink that we were using for a while. Yeah, I got you, David, I know. Also, I had to modify the actual fan wire. So I had done a little bit of a solder job to change this 4-wire to a 3-wire ending for the actual board. Because again, this is an AM2 heatsink. The fan was expecting another line. I believe this to adjust fan speed based on temperature. I think I was using like some sort of pulse logic to do that. But this board didn't accept that, so I just rewired it to a pre-existing 3-plug. But that is now off. And then we have our actual CPU, which I need to clean up still, but there it is. So what's this system looking like currently, right? Well, let me get the old flashlight out and give you a quick tour of what's going on here. I'll lower this down a little bit. There we go. Okay, see, that's gonna be enough. So first thing you might notice is up top here we have this big old metal doodad sitting there, right? That is the aftermarket cooler I have attached to my Radeon 9800 Pro in the system. We'll do this for a bit just to give you an idea of what's going on. We'll do a little free roaming here. Let's do that. Go. Okay. So, obviously that's where our chip was. This is the actual Radeon 9800 Pro. You'll see a number of heat sinks are attached to memory on the back of the card. This is the aftermarket cooler itself, which I rigged up with some crazy screw stuff. Down here, you might see, let's see if I can get you zoomed in on that. It is a very large aftermarket cooler. Let's see if I can get you on that. So if you follow the red and white wires there, you'll notice they go to some sort of taped up contraption around right here. This little guy going on here. And these are actually wires that are going to a single fan header. So I have a back panel fan here, a front panel fan right, let's see if I can get you an angle on that. Right here, that's the front panel fan. And because I only have one actual fan header, I had to splice the wires together right here. There we go, right here, to fit the header. So I'm essentially splitting my amperage between both fans, which seems to work, and that way I can have both fans powered. And once again, like I was saying, here's the actual fair. What's happening, Sam? Again, yeah, this is the aftermarket VGA cooler. see if I can spot, if I can show you where those screws are at. Let's see if I can get you a close up on that. I don't know if you can see right here-ish. See that screw sort of sticking out right there, maybe? Kind of, sort of. That's a non-standard screw. I had to add that in to actually mount this thing. And I had to reverse the orientation of the screw to actually do that. So there's only 2 screws holding this whole thing in, this whole heatsink in. And that's about all the hack jobbery that's going on in the system, minus that heatsink that we just took out. So, let's go. That's crazy. It's so many fans. So, we got the chip out. We're going to clean it up, and we're going to attempt to apply this superconductive heatsink compound onto this, and it's going to be great. It's going to be superconductive. It's going to work great. There'll be 0 issues, and everyone's going to be happy. So we can move the case out of the way for now. Let's get down to the business. So I can move this a little bit closer even. And get a little bit closer, something like that. And something like that. So about right there is what we're looking at for actual coverage of what we're doing. That's a lot of fans, Mr. David. That's intense. Now, was that a system you built yourself, or was that one that was a pre-built system? Okay, that makes sense. Yeah, I think someday I would like to build a system that can fit that many fans, because that'd be very handy, I would think. Especially with a high temperature system. Most of my cases are like mid ATX or mini ATX cases, so I don't have much opportunity to put that kind of real estate. Here's how our chip looks. Shiny, whoa. Don't have that much real estate to actually put those kind of fans in. Yes, that is the fan you bought me. That'd be this guy right here. I can kind of show that real quick, so we got to clean it up. So let's move CPU to the side. This is what you bought me, Sam. This cooler master. So some dimension differences. Let's compare. So we can see right away, this is the AM2 heatsink I was using previously. Side by side, you see that this guy is probably a little bit wider than the AM2 heatsink is. However, we start looking at the fan height, you notice that the cooler master here is significantly taller, which is sort of the key here. We're going to have a larger fan to work with, so in theory it shouldn't have to run near as fast, which is causing all of our noise. We don't have any kind of real heat pipes to speak of on the Cooler Master here compared to the AM2, but again, that's not going to be as big of a deal because we still have plenty of copper contact to use with the Cooler Master here compared to the AM2. So that's just kind of a quick comparison of what's going on. We're going to get rid of this compound so we can use our aftermarket compound. I can see that. Does it get pretty hot, David? Does the system just generate a bunch of heat? Is that kind of what's going on? I guess part of the question too with your system, David, what's the cable management look like? Do you have cables blocking any kind of airflow, things like that? Or is it pretty open so you can have those fans do it exactly what they're supposed to be doing? Okay. There we are. Nice and clean and smooth. Ready to be mounted when we want to. Now the hard part. So I got a little bit of compound on my table. Let me get that. Oh, it's a dual video card system? Where are the video cards you're running? Okay. That should be clear for the most part. Go ahead and use that. Okay. I mean, I believe you. I was just curious. Bink. Okay. In the meantime, we have our compound, and we have some sort of abrasive scrubby here of some sort. We have brushes that are meant to be used to actually, these are used to actually spread the compound along the chip, because again, this is going to be a very highly conductive compound we're using here. It's electrically conductive, unlike other thermal compounds, which means while we get to maximize the conductivity of the heat coming off the chip, we risk shorting something out if it's not spread properly or if we put too much on. Okay, we're going to do 270s? Okay. So then we also have like an isotropic alcohol 70% cleaning tissue, which we've kind of already covered with our 70% liquid used with the, paper towels. So it looks like one method is to use this abrasive pad to scrub the top of the CPU. Okay. Let me get my, I think there's some other directions to go with this stuff. Okay. Make sure the compound doesn't touch, I got directions right here. Make sure the compound does not touch any electric components, could short something. Conducts heat better than other pastes. Clean both CPU and cooler, even if they are new, not suitable for cleaning or scrubbing detergents, which we're not using. It's best when you use the added cleaning tissue to clean the cooler CPU surfaces carefully. Surfaces are free from dust and grease. In case of insufficient cleaning, contact problems can occur. If cooler is equipped with a thermal pad, it needs to be removed. Don't use this on aluminum because this stuff will actually corrode aluminum. So luckily we don't have any aluminum metals going on today. We have a copper heatsink. We're good to go, and the heat spreader in here should be fine. So let's go ahead and double check that everything's cleaned up with the tissue here real quick. I'm not going to use the abrasive pad. I don't think it's going to be necessary for what we're doing here. Particularly if the compound can't get into crevices now with the Pentium 4, then it's never going to happen anyway. So I don't think it's going to be necessary. So we're just going to go another once over with the alcohol pad just to get any kind of residual old compound off of the chip. At least off the heat spreader on the chip. Which we got a little bit off. We got a little bit. As well as on the actual heatsink itself. Which I'm not seeing a whole lot else come off, but still. We're going to be free from dust and everything else. It should also remove any kind of fragments from the paper towels that we used earlier, which there shouldn't have been too many, but still. And we'll let that go. So how is this stuff actually used? So it should be used sparingly. Approximate amounts, about 3 or 4 scale lines, and the syringe will be enough. Okay, so we have... Okay, 3 or 4 scale lines. Got it. The exact amount depends on the size of the heat spreader and evenness of the contact areas and the thickness of the gap. Okay, which we shouldn't have much of a gap going on with our actual heatsink because this is going to lay pretty flat on the chip. Let's see here. Spread it across the whole cooling block with the added brush, which we got a couple brushes here. We'll use one of them. Do not use a bare finger. Grease will impede its performance. Grease from hands will impede performance. It says you can apply it on one or both surfaces. We're going to apply it just on the CPU. I don't really see it's going to be necessary. I think it's going to be necessary to put on both the cooler and the CPU because, again, it's not going to be a wide gap that this cooler is sitting on. So I think just on the CPU is going to be sufficient. The compound will cling to the CPU and the cooler surface by means of adhesion forces. Then we press, we don't slide, and then we mount and everything. So it should be pretty straightforward what we're going to do here. But the key is going to be a mount and the spreading. At least some of the videos I've seen previously about spreading this, the compound likes to clump up because of the metal nature of it, I assume. We're going to just jump on in. Ooh, that was more than I wanted to put on there, but I think we'll be fine. Or at least that came out quicker than I anticipated. So we're gonna... And again, this is pretty much how it works. We spread it on, man. Now I do notice some of this compound is actually sticking to itself on the brush, which is a little bit frustrating, but nothing we can't overcome here. I might need to actually use a little more here, it looks like, to really get this spreading, partly because it's clumping up. I mean, you can see here it's clumping up on the brush itself. Makes it a little challenging to put on. Let me see if I can improve what we're doing here. put just a little more on. Not too much more. Yeah, I think that'll be sufficient. Try to spread this stuff on as best we can. Yeah, definitely a challenge with it sticking on the brush itself. That is, yeah. See, maybe I can use both brushes here to try to get some of it to go back onto the. I don't know, because I don't want both. I'm hoping if there's enough on one brush that it will start going back onto the heat spreader itself. So I can just sort of smooth it out. I mean, we're almost there. Just again, the fact of it. It likes to stick to that brush, man. Makes it more challenging than it should be. But I think we're starting to get a technique down of how we should do some strokes. Almost. Almost. Okay. Flies buzzing around. Spins around a little bit. Man, flies, now ain't the time to bug me. You know, there's ever a really good time, but now really isn't a good time. I mean, we're getting it on there, slowly. Take a little patience. You know, it's not like Arctic Silver where you just put a dot on, squish it on, and we're good. Oh. Fly? Really? Getting on the cooler stuff? You need to go. Got this where we want it. Now, maybe the reason why you'd want to scrub the CPU is it might help with the compound sticking to the CPU. That's a possibility. Though really, after working at it a little bit, it's not that bad. It takes a little bit of work initially, but flies, you gotta go. Bro, this ain't the place to be. We're doing some highly technical compound application here. Super technical. think we about got it here, folks. Like, I'm trying to get as even as possible across this entire heat spreader, just to maximize our conductivity. Yeah, this is looking really good now. Really good. I'll use this to take a little bit off the edge here. Why? Perfect. And I think that's about how we want it. So we have it looking kind of like that. Pretty well covered, right? So we got that covered. I'll move this to the side. I'll get our desktop back up here. All right, thanks, David. I appreciate it. That'll be a good thing to look at. All right, let's move some stuff to the side. Oh, wrong button. Okay. And pretty much what I'm going to do, I'm going to put the CPU in, and we're going to apply the mount. I'm probably not going to show a whole lot of that, just because it's a little bit difficult with how everything's oriented at this time. Let me see what I can do to maybe facilitate some of that, but it's not. I don't think it's going to really happen. The probably most interesting part is looking at how we apply the compound itself. Well, the chip should go in as usual. How it usually does. It's right in. I'm going to use this to kind of help guide it a little bit. All right. Chip is in. Lock it down with the arm. Now you'll notice with this heatsink itself, this is how typically the 487 socket goes, where you have these little ridges right here. These are where the actual mounting brackets go. These guys. So they'll end up fitting something along like this, where one end will hook into part of the mount on the motherboard, and this other end is where I can use to actually adjust when it actually locks in, if that makes sense. All right, have a good night, Sam. So let's throw this thing in. It should go in like this. Just like that. Press down firmly. Now let's lock it in. I said, now let's lock it in. There we go. Whoa, 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 Heatsink, what are you doing? Okay, let's have you in there. We'll get the opposite one in too. We'll work together on this. Okay, got that one in. And we got that one in. We're secured in. And we're plugged back up. Just like that. I'll give you a quick look at what this is actually looking like, so you're not seeing anything right now. So, what we have now, let me get a flashlight on this, is that's our heatsink now. Note the lack of zip strips. Again, we're mounted with these brackets here. See a bracket there. This guy right here. And this goes along the top, or along the sides of the, let me try and get the light on that. It's hard trying to do two handhelds at once here. And I'm zoomed in. I should zoom out. Zooming in doesn't help anybody. Again, we have bracket and other bracket. Kind of get an idea of where it's at right there. And we actually only have a native 3-wire fan going now instead of our previous hack job. So, what I'm going to do next, I am going to, let's get this focused a little bit. There you go. So what I'm going to do next, I'm going to put this on like kind of a BRB sort of thing. We're going to get this closed back up, and we're going to run some tests. We'll see how hot this thing gets and how loud it gets. So, hey, it'll be exciting. We'll be right back.
train never left, and everything I needed is gonna go away, and everything I wanted will never stay. It's like a Halloween costume, it does it down. Every good thing must come to an end. Woke up from a dream where the moon fell to the ground. Inside a hotel room that was burning down. There's a man walking over to a town he came from. Down the highway, started from the burning sun. Churches, arms waving in the air, and a seething prostitute said she once had a care. And all the little children that dance in the grass inside the nation that would be the last. There ain't gonna be no kings, you won't wanna sit and sail. understand. Every good thing must come to an end.
Okay, let's see if we can get this fixed up real quick. Okay. See if we can get me at least. Yeah, we could get the whole setup a little more. Sure, why not? Okay. Alright, I think we're about back. If Mr. David's back, I don't know yet. Don't want to start all the chaos without him, of course. That'd be just mean. Mean and cruel. Whoa, this thing is coming off. Let's fix this mic really quick. That is what we're looking for there. Now that the mic isn't falling off the dang stand, let's try that. Now, I don't have any headphones on, so I'm not sure how my levels sound, but we should be okay. Mr. David, are you back from your walk yet? I don't want to start this without you. That'd be cruel and unusual. Maybe he's not. I don't know. Maybe I will have to start without him. I know that's what he's been looking forward to all night. Some hot PC fixing stuff action, right? That's what we all want to see and do. Lots of YouTube notifications too, probably from this stream. Absolutely. Absolutely. I'm gonna check Discord here really quick. Not Twitch. Discord. Just to see if David comes back really quick. Oh wow, that is an impressive setup. So much blue. I'll have to let David share that at some point. I don't want to start showing off his computer to other people. But that is, yeah, he's had quite the rig. Much more sophisticated than the rigs I got. I'm pretty basic with what I have. But we'll just sort of, hey, made it back. Awesome. I can start. Excellent. So, this system came back up, so good news. I didn't fry anything, right? And we're going to run Prime 95, which is a classic stress test for CPUs. Because there's a bunch of, I believe it's a bunch of floating point calculations that it does. Things to keep in mind here, we have a CPU, I'm using a HW monitor here to keep track of thermals and all of that. So we have our temperatures, which we're at about 40 degrees Celsius right now. We also have fan 1 or fan 0 and fan 2. Fan 0 is what our CPU fan is at right now, which we're at about 2800 RPM, almost 2900. So those are going to be kind of the two main stats we'll be looking at as we run the stress test to see how hot does the chip get, how quickly will it come back down to cool once the actual test is done, and how loud is this fan going to get while we run the test, which we'll hear it in this room. So far it's pretty quiet, but we haven't done this yet, so. Let's do it. Running the tests. So we're up to about 50 Celsius. (51 Celsius). (52 Celsius). Fan isn't really kicking off to above 2900 yet. It's still staying around 2800. 53 Celsius. I mean, it's staying pretty quiet. (54 Celsius). I think we're maxing out around 62, 63 Celsius with the old cooler. If I'm not mistaken. I'll have to check some of the old chat. Maybe I can do that while this is running, just kind of keep an eye on things. It seemed to climb up pretty quickly there as well, at least quicker than I anticipated. There's the fan. Now it's kicking on. It's not in that. It might have been in some other chat I was using previously. Which actually might have been the case fans kicking on. Also make sure this has a little bit of room on the sides. There we go. To make sure it's in more of an ideal placement for the tower. Actually, maybe we get up to 57 and that's where we're maxing out at. I can't quite remember. If Sam was here, I could ask him. Maybe I got some... Let me check my text real quick. Maybe I can pull it up from there. So I think I was texting him at the time when we were doing this. Problem is, I text him quite a bit, so we have a few to go through. Still at 56. Okay. So last time we got up to around 56 degrees, it looks like. And we started off at Okay, so it seems to be running a little bit hotter, though the fan is going at a significantly less speed. Okay. So that's observation number one. The fan is definitely not going near as high as the old cooler was doing. The old cooler, I was thinking around 6,200 RPM. It got up to about 6,500 RPM, and it was keeping around 56 degrees Celsius. That's what it maxed out at. So the question is going to be, with the compound I used here, number one, did I use enough compound to maximize the conductivity for the heat coming off the chip? And number two, how high is this fan going to get to actually keep this thing cool? And are we going to be able to keep a steady enough temperature on here where it's going to be usable and it's not going to generate a whole lot of noise, right? So because we don't want to have this chip overheat. I'll have to look back on some of the previous benches as well. All right, so we're around 56, 57. I'll have to check out the previous tests as well to see what the system temperature was at as well, to see what that disbursement was looking like. But last time I ran this for about 16 minutes. And I kind of called it done, where it ran for 16 minutes, 3 tests. Okay. Yeah. You know, I won't lie, I looked at some liquid cooling solutions for this as well. I'm like, that'd be the ultimate solution for a Pentium 4 or any kind of hot chip, is just liquid cool, man. But that's a lot of... Well, for one thing, I would need a bigger case, because I just don't have a big enough case. But, yeah, it would have to be a very extreme solution to keep a Windows XP machine cool. Like, man, going to that step to keep a machine like a Windows XP machine cool, that'd be a bit ridiculous. I do like the fact it's jumping down between 56, 57. That's a good sign. It means overall the whole system is keeping itself cool. I like how the case fans are helping with that. I think that was a big help when I was running this before, and when I made the previous additions to the case. It looks like overall we probably increased temperature on the chip. I think that's again because of the lower RPM the fan is running at. It's not running near as hard as the AMD fan was. That thing, I mean, if you go back on that stream and you hear that fan going, that thing was just rocking hard. Yeah, it is a lot of hassle for an older chip. And honestly, if I was going to make another XP machine, I'd probably make a 939 or an AM2 socket machine. That'd be like a super high-end XP machine. There are advantages to having an XP machine, but for the type of stuff we're doing right now with the Pentium 4, yeah, it's kind of like, when does this become a bit ridiculous to put that much into an older chip? This chip, I believe, it will shut down the system around 62 degrees Celsius. So they are not meant to run near as hot as newer chips. Now again, that heat tolerance is because of overclocking and such those chips are built to do. It was a completely different heat threshold back with these sockets. And that was actually something I experienced with this particular chip. I tried using a pure aluminum heatsink initially. It was one that came with the Celeron chip that was in this system, and the system would just crash when any kind of hard load hit the CPU, because again, it would generate too much heat. The aluminum wasn't dispersing the heat, and the whole thing would just shut down. So not near as high of a heat tolerance as we have for today's chips. which makes it all the more critical to make sure you have great airflow in these older systems. I got a lot of flies in here. I need to bring in a bug zapper and get these flies dealt with. Plus side, though, is we're not seeing the heat climb up too much higher than the 56, 57, which is a great sign. I mean, I can live with 56, 57, especially with a load like this. That means any game I'll throw at it is going to keep cool. The noise is significantly lower than what it was. Again, we haven't even hit 2,900 RPM on the fan. Let me see if I actually have some stats on this. Will this actually get that high, or is it... what do we know about this fan? Do we know anything about this fan? Because that's really it also. It's really about the fan that's on this, not so much... I mean, the heatsink's obviously important, but in terms of noise being generated, the fan's what's going to dictate that, right? But right now, I mean, with the combination of the whole system... Well, I think that's part of it, too, is you look at the system temperature at 51 right now, the CPU's at 56. It's not a huge difference between the two. I mean, it tells me that the heat's being dispersed properly with the entire system, which is a pretty good sign there. I think. That's what it looks like to me. There's a lot of compound on this. I put a lot of compound on this heatsink. Holy cow. Trying to clean up the old AM2 heatsink here. It might get reused for something else. So, I mean, it's very noisy, without a doubt. But it will keep whatever it is under it sufficiently cool. It will do that. So, no worries on that front. But yeah, I think if I went with this again, I'd either do an AM2 build, or I'm very partial to one of the earliest PCs I built myself, which was a 939 socket system. Particularly because that has dual core chips as opposed to just multi-threaded chip, just like hyper-threaded chips like Intel is putting out, so you get more bang for your buck with the performance. There's a lot more hardware out there they can use, and honestly, it's just... You can build some beefier systems that way for an XP machine for that period. So that's also what I kind of was considering when I was looking at possibly doing a liquid-cooled solution. I was like, well, honestly, this... I wouldn't be doing it to make this an optimal system, like in terms of an optimal XP system. It'd be to almost put this Pentium 4 system on life support, because of how much heat it generates. Alright, our system's kind of going between 51 and 52 degrees. Okay. I mean, again, that fan... I mean, it sounds like most of the noise is coming from the case fans now. Which is not near as noisy as... I mean, again, listen. There's obviously fan noise in the room, but not near as much as what we're getting from the single fan of this thing here, right? Well, that's good. That's good. That's the goal. Now, we might see some thermals slightly change as we use this heatsink in as well, because there's going to be some... the actual compound will change as more heat is applied to that... as more heat's applied to the heatsink and all that. So you might see where this... it's almost like breaking in the conductive seal that you generate with the compound and the heatsink and the CPU, right? So we might see some thermal differences with that. Ideally, you'll see a quicker heat transfer because of that, and also we have more normalized temperature. Like the temperatures we initially read when I booted up the system. That's also keeping in mind that the system is going to read a little bit cooler because the physical compound is going to be of a lower temperature because it was in a syringe in room temperature, right? Which is then applied to the metal, and thus you're going to get those thermals before any load is actually applied. So we'll see how that is affected as we continue to put loads on the system and all of that. But so far, not too bad. I think with the giant, as you've now seen, the ginormous aftermarket cooler I have on the GPU, as well as the CPU heatsink, we're sitting pretty good with this XP machine. This is a pretty solid XP machine. It'll run about what all we need without making too much noise. And everything's pretty well cleaned up, so we don't have a whole lot of dust hanging around the system to block any airflow. So it's not too bad. Not too bad. Temperatures are pretty stable around 57. I would assume it's probably going to jump up to 58 at some point. Just as temperature rises, but I mean, we can deal with that. That's okay, especially with that kind of load. Fly, go away. God, we got like 2 or 3 flies in here. Stupid flies. And again, the worst thing is those case fans. And those are old case fans too, so there might even be some improvements if I were to get some bigger, quieter case fans. One of them is actually just bolted onto the front of the compact case, which honestly, I could probably put a bigger fan on there and fit it. It's more of just like a general air vent that's there. So it's not built for the case, right? But it has a bunch of space available where if I wanted to throw one on there, I could. I think I end up using some case screws and some washers to hold the fan in place, just to mount it in there. And it holds it solid. But we could put a very large fan on the front inside that case and really increase our intake and reduce that noise. Mm-hmm. But yeah. Thermals are pretty steady, it looks like. It's good. It's good. So far, so good. See, we're up to 58 now. Yeah. Kind of expected that to happen, but it's a slow climb. Actually, let me look that up for you real quick, David. Let's see what the thermal limit is on the Pentium 4. I think it's Northwood core. Double check that here. Okay. Design, power. It looks like some of the max temps are around 69, 70 degrees for the Pentium 4. It looks like it's usually like at least the one I have. Because this is what? I probably have to bring up CPU-Z to get my specifics on this one. Let me see what the front side bus on this is real quick. Okay. Yeah, normal operating temperature to expect between 66 and, let's see, with this one, in this case, this is running at 3.2, 82 degrees with a max, oh, that's wattage, 82 watts. But maximum is 70 degrees Celsius, okay. With a minimum of 5 degrees Celsius. So we're well within operation range. Yeah, we're good. So, yeah. Some of them can run up to 75, it looks like. But that's hitting some high limits there. Yeah, I mean, it looks like we're doing pretty good. That's looking pretty solid. Yeah, it's still staying at 2,800 RPM. Never gone above 2,900. Maybe it doesn't even go that high. I don't know. We're leveraging the case fans quite a bit. Because again, the case fans are running about 2,000 RPM. But it's pretty steady. Pretty quiet. Manageable. A manageable volume, right? So, nice. I would say this is a success. We've done well. And we didn't break the bank either. This actual compound. So the compound I end up using, which if you ever end up having to put an aftermarket cooler on something, especially something that produces a lot of heat, this was the compound I saw that was highly recommended in terms of conductivity. It's like this is the some of the best. It's much more difficult to apply, but if you're looking to maximize conductivity with whatever cooler you're using, this is what you use. It applied well. It seems to be working fine, at least for this high heat chip. It retailed for that small syringe, it was about $14 on Newegg. I ended up getting mine for free because initially it was sent to the wrong person. They refunded me the money, and then it just showed up at my door one day. So I guess the person may have found it was the wrong package and just sent it over to my house. So, hey, free compound. But it's a significantly smaller amount than you would get with, say, Arctic Silver or other compounds, but apparently it is some of the cream of the crop in terms of compounds to use when you're applying aftermarket coolers or water cooling solutions. Disadvantages, again, you saw it was a little bit difficult to spread the compound on the chip. It took a little time to do that. You don't just apply paste and then push your cooler on top of it. So you have to have a little patience to put that together as well. And, well, the bigger concern is that it's electrically conductive, which means you can't mess around with this stuff in terms of just putting way too much on and then just gets to components. Because once it shorts a couple of circuits, it's going to fry something. And that's bad news bears. But if you're careful, like I was doing, just spread it on. Hey, works fine. And it, from what I was seeing, it should last quite a while as well. The only thing is you want to not apply it to aluminum-based materials because it will corrode them. I believe that is the heat spreaders on the chip I'm using is not aluminum. Let me double check that actually. least I believe it's not just aluminum straight up. But yeah, it should be a material, though, where it's not going to corrode. Like if you're using a pure aluminum heatsink, which a lot of older systems would use that. I know nowadays, most heatsinks you're using have some sort of copper material that you're using, thus it won't corrode from the thermal compound. That's a consideration to make as well. But so far, I mean, it's very usable. And the system is keeping cool under heavy, heavy load, which is what it's under right now. Yeah. So I think we'll stop the test here. I'm satisfied with what I'm seeing here. And now let's see how quickly this cools down. Oh yeah, look, that's dropping real fast. And pay attention specifically to the CPU, how it's getting much cooler than the actual system temperature. Like we have an auxiliary thermometer, thermometer in there as well. But I mean, that disbursement of that heat is very fast, which tells us how quickly is heat being dispersed off the chip from the thermal compound, as well as how efficient is the fan working on the actual heatsink, which looks like it's doing a fine job. It's also being helped by the fact that the case fans are running fairly aggressively, so a lot of air is being blown in, dispersing all that heat, getting exhausted out, and all of that. But that's a pretty fine job there. Awesome. Didn't take any time at all, even. And it slowed down a little bit as we're getting closer to 43. I think we start off at around 43, something like that. But, okay. Cool. So, I think that'll be it for the stream tonight. So, we showed what I had in my system previously. We've heard the noise. We've seen the zip strips and all of that. And it worked, but we needed a quieter solution. So now we've gone to an actual heatsink and fan that are built for this system, this Cooler Master product, which has a copper bottom, which allows us to use some higher quality compounds, including the, what was the brand called again? Let me find it. I just had it in front of me. This Cool Laboratory compound. And I can provide a link in the description of like the YouTube video or something. Yeah, it's called Cool Laboratory Liquid Ultra. And that's sort of what it looks like. Let me get kind of a... Man, I can't see it from this preview window. Alright, now... Case fans have calmed down. Yeah, let's see here. Yeah, so there you go. Cool Laboratory Liquid Ultra. So that's the product we got right now that we use for the heatsink and all of that. Application takes a little time, but we get it. Once it's done, it seems to work fairly well. The system itself has responded well. Heat kicks up pretty quick on the CPU, as expected with the Northwood chipset. But with the better CPU cooler, which now is up to 2900 RPM, and like, listen, most of that noise is from my Windows 7 tower I'm using for streaming, not from the XP machine. So even at 2900 RPM, it's staying pretty cool, and all that noise is just from the case fans, which are now running pretty calm. So that's a pretty quiet system. But we've seen some improvements in noise. Thermals are looking great. And yeah, this thing stays pretty cool. So cool. So thank you everyone who's watched after the fact. Thank you Sam and David for joining me live on this small adventure to improve the XP machine and thus the quality of the streams. And now we should have a lot less room noise. Next up would probably be trying to figure out a way to reduce the noise of my Windows 7 tower and maybe also help reduce the heat overall that gets generated in this room. Because I have all these systems going. There's not a lot of ventilation in this room, so we get a lot of heat generated very quickly. Well, these are things we can work on. Anywho, that's it. Have a wonderful night, guys. Thank you so much, and see you next time.